As creatives, we get to live in one of the most unique times possible. We live in a world where we have access to tools and ways to express our creativity and get it out to the world. This has never happened before. We are living in the greatest communication shift in 500 years. And I think that's interesting to talk about. I think there are pros and cons and things to consider. And I want to consider this concept of democratizing creativity. Essentially this idea of making something widely available to everyone. So for me as a filmmaker, you used to have to be in Hollywood or have access to lighting, studios, cameras, film. All of this was expensive gear, and you couldn't just go on Amazon and order, a Nikon or a Sony, with a kit lens. We hadn't democratized these things yet. And now anyone can make a film and put it on YouTube, and it could go viral and people could see it, whatever, right? So, but at the same time, that doesn't necessarily mean that better films are being made. And so yeah, there's like this grappling here with you and your creative gifts, your creative art, the things that you love. How have the tools become more available? Like, how has that helped you or benefited you? And have you found it harder? Maybe if you're a little bit older and you remember a time like before the internet or whatever your creative hobby is, maybe you remember the difficulty it was in the past and how easy it is now. And maybe you can get cynical about that and go, wow, kids don't have to suffer and experience all of that. So I want to look at a post on Substack. I've been wanting to react to this for a while, but just haven't found the right moment to do it. So this is a post from the fall last year. And I just thought it was really interesting. So I'm just going to read through all of this. I'll kind of chop this up if I need to. I'm going to read through this, react to it in real time. So here we go. This is from Danny Offline, and it's just called "Everyone Wants to Be a DJ, No One Wants to Dance." She said, "This is not an essay about nightlife, not exclusively. When I was 15, I used to sneak out of the house to go clubbing, climbing through my bedroom window, crawling to my RAV4, holding my breath as I turned the key in the ignition, then slowly pulling away in the deep blue stillness of a Thursday night. I had a sense that I was participating in something holy. In the sacred vacuum of my car, only the earthy, paper-like smell of air conditioning could bear witness to my dreams of transgression and independence. I didn't know it yet, but I was becoming an artist." I present this example to mark a paradox that troubles the titles of this essay. Pure, anonymous participation in something strange and beautiful is often that which draws us to the center of it all. The best writers I know are devoted readers. The best musicians I know listen to music constantly. It is such a problem that everyone wants to be an artist these days. Maybe the issue is an inherited impulse to be creative, but primarily as an exercise in value making. Participation in the creation of others, for so many of us, have been made to feel like a means to an end. I've talked about this before, how creativity, we often feel like we have to reach a result, or there has to be a product, and that creativity itself isn't valuable. So I love that she's bringing that into this. We read books to become better writers, or so we can seem well read. We listen to music to sharpen our influence and find our target audience. I know I'm not alone in this vulnerable, terrified exercise, studying the things I enjoy and swatting away insecurities until my own inspiration strikes. This affected pursuit is not new. Whether we like it or not, aesthetic life under capitalism becomes dominated by the commodity form. Art practice, with all its ethereal and sublime possibilities, begins to feel like an exclusive members-only club. So what she's bringing here is interesting, that life under capitalism feels like it forces artists to, instead we're not just creating art for art's sake, we are creating a commodity. We're creating something that could be valuable to the system. And that sacred act, that holy act of art, or, you know, as creativity as she describes it here, begins to feel like an exclusive members only club. So let's keep going with this idea. First, why do we crave access? Why do so many people want to be DJs? So in a 2015 essay for The Atlantic, Debbie Chakra writes that the cultural primacy of making is informed by the gendered history of who made things. Historically, we have come to understand that producing things of value is intrinsically superior to not producing. Repair, analysis, caregiving, sharing, touching, feeling, it doesn't pay the bills or get you a Wikipedia page. There is also, of course, the seductive title of artist. An aura of mystery, genius, and importance surrounds the word. In a culture where works of art, online presence, and tangible skills flatten so deliciously into commodities, being a maker at the center of culture leads to social currency and real currency. An artist today is, by necessity, an entrepreneur. So this idea that in history, who has made the things? And how has that made our history books? How has that made people successful, right? There are people who have shown up, been entrepreneurial, and done amazing things. But this idea that that's the only value, or that like now we're taking all these artists, you see it on your social media pages, these people who are really gifted and talented, and they're trying to sell you a course, they're trying to sell you a hack, they're trying to sell you a viral trick, way, buy their course or whatever it is, right? So we've turned these amazing people, these artists, into entrepreneurs. That's what the system under capitalism has done. Another definite reason so many people seek the troubled social status of creative these days is because it's easier than ever to become one. That's such an interesting statement. I think that statement is actually a bedrock to this YouTube channel and to my current sort of approach in making these videos and communicating as a creative to other creatives. The fact is, it is really easy to become one. And so let's see why, right? She's going to talk about the democratization. So the democratization of this pursuit is, on one hand, a beautiful thing, okay? But it's also incredibly lucrative to those who supply the means of production. Immediately, what I think of is Adobe. Adobe has, democratized editing tools, Photoshop, Premiere, Lightroom, and turned it into a subscription service. So the downside, I'm kind of getting ahead here, but the downside would be, in order to be a creative, let's say, you need to be paying $30 or $35 a month to this company who's, created the means of this creativity or these creative skill sets that you might have. It's also incredibly lucrative to those who supply the means of production. As creation gets conflated with entrepreneurship, making art becomes an experience, a lifestyle to be bought and sold. The subtle injection to network, curate, and fetishize ourselves and spend as much money as we can afford along the way can't be good for us. So I think that's good to think through. I hope in my videos I'm able to kind of push back on that idea. Fetishize is an interesting word. It's like if you are trying to set yourself up with creative pursuits. Sometimes I think like when I'm describing, hey, what's your creative hobby? What's your creative pursuit? We might think like, who's that person who's sitting out barefoot in their backyard and they're painting 1 minute and then they move over and they're making pottery on a wheel with the clay. Like all of these different things, like we're trying to set up like an Instagrammable moment as we create our art, and like we gotta eject from that idea. We gotta completely reject that and shift to something completely different. The problem is that not everyone wants to be an artist. It's that enjoying art with other people for the simple, loving pleasure of it all has become devalued. If that's the case, what are we even doing all this for? Why be an artist at all if we can't enjoy the things we create? I think that's a really valuable question. I think so many people have forgotten to ask that question, have gotten away from that question. They're asking about the end result. They're asking about what's the ROI? What can I get out of this? How am I going to be successful? How am I going to get paid? Instead of just saying, man, like we can't even enjoy the things that we want to create anymore because, we're thinking about the wrong things. We know that all art is the result of thousands of sources. We understand the illusory fetish of ownership that gilds our concepts of art, craft, technique, and expertise. So why do we continue to place so much cultural primacy on creators as individuals and not part of a larger tissue of artistic life? Wow, that is powerful. This is something as an introvert that I really struggle with, this idea of a cultural, like a community artistry. Because as an introvert, I derive a lot of pleasure, appreciation in being able to express my art, one, as a way to connect with God. That's a huge part of it for me. But then connecting with myself, like turning inward. There's a turning inward with my creativity that I really enjoy. So I don't know if I'm the one necessarily to help you on this journey of joining community with your art, just because that's not something I am particularly passionate about or very good at. So I think this points to a really important idea, is when we try to individualize ourselves, right? We're thinking about, okay, what am I going to post on social media this week? How am I going to stop the scroll and impact? Instead of building community with our art or just being in community through our art, I think that's super underrated. Roland Barthes writes in The Death of the Author that when we read a sentence in a book, no real person utters it. The voice is not to be located, and yet it is perfectly read because the true locus of writing is reading. The multiplicity of art is inscribed in its destination, not its origin. In the interest of distinguishing this essay from yet another hand-wringing piece about some cultural problem, I want to linger on the possibilities that await us when we return to that magic, the real purpose of art, the reason we're all here. How would my life change if I danced more? If I listened more instead of talking? Walter Benjamin writes that the distracted mass absorbs the work of art. I don't want to absorb art to fulfill my own ego. I want to experiment with ways to be absorbed by it all. The way forward is precisely in valuing the things I have learned to avoid, sharing, slowing, watching myself disappear. When I used to sneak out of the house to go clubbing, I was always strangely rule-following in that pursuit. I didn't drink and drive. I finished my homework before leaving. I didn't linger in hallways with men I didn't know or stay too long in smoke-filled rooms. The point was to learn and explore, to experience being inside what was outside. I wanted to protect the magic, this appreciation for a moment, like a preciousness in what you're experiencing inside a specific moment with a specific community is really cool. I think if I were to put on a certain hat, I would say, well, yeah, like younger generations experience less and less of that. I think the internet, in the ways that it has democratized different experiences and more like connection to information, the way that has increased, our unique experiences with others, I think, has decreased in a lot of ways. And so, there's a preciousness and a sacredness to what she's describing here in what she was pursuing, what she was going after, just this desire to go out and to dance. I am most happy when I feel myself exist beyond any fixed identity or role. Okay, that's key. I think often as creatives, we can get into the labeling of ourselves. And yeah, often that's ego-driven. It's driven out of fear. I am most happy when I feel lost in the things that I create and love. I'm no longer me, but part of something great and unstoppable. The power of that loss is always striking when it occurs, and it happens again and again when I stop thinking about myself so much and just enjoy it. Yeah, so that's a powerful article. I hope that encouraged you. I don't know, it's a very well-written and interesting, thoughtful approach to what is going on in our culture right now. Why is there a pulling away from wanting to just experience and be lost in a creative moment or the things that we love, just hobbies and interests, and expressing ourselves seems to have just been lost and so individualized now, to where we're all just kind of going around as our individual artists, trying to, I don't know, find a means to an end. Yeah, it's discouraging. But on the other hand, I see this on things, like on TikTok, for example. I see these videos of these saxophone players. It's usually a saxophone. And there's one where they're like, people are stopped under this bridge, right? They're like under the highway or whatever, under this bridge. And people are just stopped and listening to this guy play his instrument. It's just a moment. There's another one where I saw, it's kind of from the POV of the saxophone player, and he quickly shouts out the security guard that's standing there. He's like, "Thanks to the security guard for being cool."
Security guy.
And you pan as everyone is applauding, and they're in this parking garage, and it's like a bunch of young people literally sitting on the cold cement. There's like oil stains from the cars, right? Like a weird space. But this guy is playing this beautiful saxophone, and people are just sitting and embracing it. And, in that moment, I guess the guy is like filming himself. How much of that is happening that we just don't see? Like maybe that's what it is. Maybe with social media, it's like we see these moments that are maybe a little bit, when you film something, it kind of becomes more contrived. Maybe there's people enjoying and creating art together in community. We just don't necessarily see it. That would be cool if that is still happening. I know it is happening, but I think so easily we fall into this trap of what is going to be good for me as an individual, what is going to make me money, and yeah, that's all within this, sort of capitalist system where the commodity of the art has become more valuable than the creation and actual art itself. So the democratizing is interesting. It's very cool that we can have tools. Like, for example, I was thinking about the TikTok edits. I've seen some of the most amazing TikTok edits. I saw a Nacho Libre one recently.
Tonight, I will fight the 7 strongest men in town. Maybe the world. And I will win.
That was just so cool. I think even Disney did like a TikTok edit style for their new Darth Maul show. And I guess that's not necessarily the best example because it's animated. But there's this new trend on TikTok where people are rotoscoping characters out of backgrounds and doing really cool effects with that. And the reason why that's possible is because of democratization with Adobe Premiere Pro. Adobe had an update a little while ago where basically you could auto remove people from the background. Now, this has been a feature in things, like Canva or whatever for a while, with like sort of a one-click remove from background, but this is video. It used to be that you have to painfully rotoscope. I know this as someone who used to have to do this. If you want to remove something from the background, you rotoscope that object, and then you do that frame by frame. So if you have a 30-second clip, 24 frames per second, you do the math. That is a lot of painstaking work. And now Premiere lets you do it, boom, one click and it's done. So we're getting these really cool, I think, TikTok edits of shows and just like cool ways to express, montage or whatever. And I think we're going to continue to see that, and that's going to be a trend. It's going to peak once you see name brands, posting it. Once you see like Nabisco or whatever, like posting an edit, then you're like, cool. All right, the moment's over, and now we're moving on, right? So, but in the democratization, in the sort of, hey, everybody can have the software. Everybody can use these tools. There's cool stuff that comes along with it. But then there are also people who come in and are just looking to use this for their own gain. They don't care about the process of creating. They only care about the results and what it does for them. And yeah, there's a whole system that feeds into this. It's like, hey, how much money can I extract from you as you pursue this creative hobby? And so it's a bummer. It's a bummer that is the result. I think it's important and possible for us to, like I said, reject that and be in community with other artists and be creating just for the sake of it, just because we love doing it. As this essay kind of points out, instead of wanting to be the DJ, show up to dance because you love the music, you love dancing, you love celebrating a moment with other people. I think that's the key. I think that's how we can kind of break out of this. Yeah, I hope this encourages you. It's a bit of a longer video, so thank you for sticking around for this. But yeah, my name is Tristan. I am passionate about helping creatives discover their unique God-given gifts. Thank you for watching, and stay creative.